Yeah, g'day YouTube and everyone out there. Hope you're all doing well. So I just got a message to the actual government of Australia and to ScoMo or Scott Morrison himself, mate. If you want to prove to us that you're not a shill and you're not a liar and you're not a treasonous dog of this country that is doing everything against the human rights of your population that you are supposed to control and help, well, why don't you find two COVID-19 people that are truly infected with COVID-19 from the virus itself, not just coronavirus, just speculating that they have COVID-19, actually diagnose them with COVID-19 and actually have a accurate test to start with. Now, these people could even be sick with the flu if you want. It doesn't matter because we all know COVID-19 is basically a flu anyway. So you get these two sick people that have a virus, okay? Not bacterial infection, and we will be checking, we want that checked as well. Now, you get these two people in a room with 98 people that have been diagnosed to not have coronavirus. I want you to leave them there for 2 weeks. I'll even volunteer to be one of those people. I guarantee at the end of it that not many people at all will become infected from those two people, if any. And this will prove to you the contagion rate versus reality versus fantasy made-up statistics from a theoretical model that is introduced by those that have their own agenda at heart and not the population at all, and only the pharmaceutical industries, to push the pharmaceutical industries forward in advancement to make more money through the vaccination of the entire populace of the world, and to basically slowly bring in the new communism laws. So if you really want your Australian public to listen to you and believe anything that you say to any one of us, then prove what we ask. Find a room, have it isolated, have 2 people tested for COVID-19 that are in a full serious COVID-19, where they actually have it, coughing and spluttering, not an elderly person that's about to pass away, and bring them into there, and I guarantee that you will not be able to prove that that virus would spread to anyone, and everyone else in that room will not get sick, because if it's not a bacterial infection, it cannot be passed on, and that is just plain logic. So I challenge you, the government, to prove me, just an average day Joe, which you'll probably nickname or stereotype conspiracy theorist. Well, I'm not. I'm someone concerned about the situation of where you are going and what you are doing with manipulation, pulling a psychological propaganda stunt over the top of all the people, the good male and females of Australia and their families and their granddad and their grandma, all in the name to gain more political power and control, and to move this country, which is ours, not yours, and never has been yours. You are here elected by us. We own this country, and we as the people have all rights to demand our government to provide evidence of what they say is not false and it has not been manipulated to show statistics that are unreal, and to convince the population to have trust once again in the government itself. If you cannot do this, and you refuse to even acknowledge anything like this from the Australian population, we will know you are lying, and we as a population will not be held responsible for our retaliation and our way that we will fight for our constitutional rights to live in the land of the free as we always have, even though over years and years and years, trust us, we've noticed the lockdown continuing a little bit more and more and more and more until you get your tight little grasp, which you have done right now. Now, the truth is, if you cannot prove that this disease, or this virus, which is dead, unless it's in the body itself, infectiously carries itself through these 100 people that are in this building, and they do not become sick, because remember, it is a pandemic and it's highly contagious. If all 100 people do not show signs of sniveling, coughing, and exactly the same symptoms as the first 2 people that will have the severe diagnosis of COVID-19, then I call fraud, which I do right now. I call you a fraud right now. I call the whole of Australian government nothing but lapdogs and frauds. If you can provide any evidence like this towards your population, then you may gain trust in us once again. But at the moment, and I speak for myself and I speak for the people, we are truly outraged at the actions that you have done towards us. And we, being civilised, even though the mainstream media will sell the populations as uncivilised, and social unrest would break down into the streets as soon as anything happened where the economy would collapse, you can see that we are all dignified and civilised people trying to keep in accordance to a totalitarian law that is truly obscene and is not needed for this present epidemic or pandemic, as the figures and statistics show, even from WHO's Anthony Fauci, that this is nothing more than a severe influenza, no more akin to the seasonal flu of each year. So, if this is not an agenda to take away the people's rights, and to take away the people's rights to have and own small businesses and private property, in accordance to push yourself forwards to a United Nations plan to complete Agenda 21 and start to form the basis of what we will call, under Henry Kissinger, a new world order, and George Bush Sr. and others, then you are either too stupid to comply and understand what we as the people are asking, or you are 100% traitor to this nation. And you should be hung and trialed, hung without trial, as well as the rest of the cabinets that have gone along with this delusional, made-up scheme to trick the population into thinking one way through behaviour modifier programs that are considered unconstitutional once again against the people, as many other Geneva Convention laws that have been broken here towards what has been done to the people through weapons considered non-lethal, and we know about them. We, as the people, have to tell you right now, we are not satisfied with the way that you control the government. We are not satisfied with the way that you are handling crisis situations. And we are not satisfied that we as the people are never being listened to. There are many doctors qualified worldwide that will tell you right now that a virus can only be injected. The fact that you refuse to listen to these qualified MDs, PhDs, and virologists, and many high degrees in their field, practitioners, doctors, and masters of their craft, then you are being ignorant on purpose to refuse to listen to another narrative that doesn't go with what you are trying to sell. And this proves once again that you want nothing but your narrative, which means you are creating a propaganda in order to take away our freedom in the name of your treasonous actions. We will not tolerate this. We will listen for longer. You have now locked us away for 4 more weeks. After this 4 weeks, I suggest you be prepared, because we may be single in identity and number on a certificate to you, but we as a people care about each other, and we have a thing that the government does not have, and that is a heart. We will help someone up off the ground if they fall down. We will not kick them and ask them for money. We will show the government, if it comes down to the situation where it has to be done, what it is true to be a true person that loves their country and that will do anything for the right of their own freedom, as God had given us when we had entered into this reality. So you, Mr. Scott Morrison, you've been asked to do a simple task. If you cannot put those people inside of a room that you would like to consider a quarantine tent or quarantine location, well, you're a liar. I suggest that it would be very, very significant for the Australian people that if you did do this, that you yourself were one of the ones that laid down as one of the extra 98 people that were not infected with COVID-19, to see if you yourself have been infected with the non-bacterial virus at the end of it all. Because the truth is, you have gone out of your way to manipulate the public through the false media that is nothing more than attachment to the American propaganda CIA and the agencies in Australia controlled by the same micronism, right back to you yourself have formed an alliance that has sold out your people, and your people will not tolerate it. You have a way and a decision right now to choose what will be the future for you. You may think that you will reign and you will be an elite, but you will not. You yourself is cannon fodder. You are nothing but a puppet that has its strings pulled in order to create an agenda. And if you have any backbone in you, you will refuse that agenda and stand up for the Australian people's rights, as you, as being our Prime Minister, are obligated to in the name of peace and freedom and sovereignty of Australia. So I thank you all for listening, and I hope that this somehow gets to you, Scott, and the Cabinet of Australia government, and I really, really would like you to take my considerations into the exercise that I've detailed that would allow the people of Australia to know that this pandemic is not a scam and a scheme put forward by those higher up and in higher positions than even you, which you may even know who I talk about, and allow us to once again regain trust that the government has nothing but our best interests at heart. This has been a long lost feeling of the people, and it's about time it has been returned. If you consider doing this and you are proven right, well, I would actually be absolutely amazed, because it is statistically impossible for you to be proven right. The whole agenda is to vaccinate the population and to put us under a full control, under a new form of soft martial law called medical martial law that dictates the future and the control over an individual by diagnostics of a test that brings a 80% false positive back and then doesn't even test for the targeted virus itself, but only tests for genetic material connected and sequenced with coronavirus that then is determined as being COVID-19 through the speculation and Maybe if it is, maybe if it isn't. And this is not what a medical practice is about. We want diagnostics that are true. We want tests that are perfections. And we do not want a vaccination permanently. Many of us have religious beliefs and moral beliefs that do not allow vaccinations to even be brought into our peace of mind in considering what we are going to do any time in life. The fact that you are now dictating, because let's just state what it is, dictating to the whole population of Australia that we may not experience the outside reality that we were born into and that we were free to roam until we have received a vaccination that has no scientific test behind it to prove that there is no long-term effects after the vaccination, or even a short-term effects after the vaccination, or what kind of poison is being injected into an individual against their consent. This, once again, is a treasonous act towards Australians, and in the long run will only bring trouble to the government from the Australian people. We are a number of greatness if we are combined as one. And this is something that the Australian government and forces of authority have forgot. The forces of authority, you are there to protect the Australian people. You are there to uphold law, real law, not made up overnight, written down, new scripted regimes that push towards totalitarian control over your country that you grew up in and that you lived to love. I suggest that all the military out there that listen to this understand that you are selling out your people under the guise of not knowing the true agenda behind those at the top that have only put down orders and commands that have made you do these actions towards your own people and population that you have friends in, that you have grown up in, and to once again put it aside in your mind and think, is this right, what is going on, and is this right to do to the people? There is no test that proves that COVID-19 itself exists, and there is no test to prove that it does not exist. This way is a good way to manipulate anyone into the accordance and actions of what you desire them to do. Simply is, if they don't go against the willingness of our control and our regime placed before him and the narrative, then therefore, under the guise of COVID-19, they could be removed from the public and isolated. This does not work. This gives the government new totalitarian control over taking and placing families, mothers, fathers, sons and daughters at any time they wish under the fake premise that they have COVID-19 without a designated targeted test to prove that the virus actually exists and they have it. Not on top of that, that it is dangerous and it is a threat to anyone else around them. The organisations that you represent and are listening to are corrupt. Who and many others that you are listening to, including the medical board, that is the one that tells you what to do in Australia and how to proceed during a pandemic, has an agenda. All of this will come to light because you cannot hide something that is such a big lie for long. And know this, at the end of it, we the people will not tolerate it. We the people are quiet and we the people are tolerant. But we the people also have a certain amount and level of toleration that we will take and we will use. After that, actions will have to be created in order to push the direction once again of our beloved country towards freedom. These actions at this moment in life are unprecedented. and they are now, just like the pandemic, unprecedented. They mean that according to law, that we do not know what the future holds, and that the people themselves will retaliate for their own right to live and their own freedom and their own breath of air of the outside world whenever they desire. This is our world, and this is also our air. This is our outside. This is our sun, and this is our ground. There's no state or government that owns God's land, and that's what the government has to remember. The land is here for all of us, and we, the population, demand that we are treated fairly with the freedom and respect and the dignified manner in the response that we have done during our tyrannical mental abuse by the forms of government and the heads of Australia that should be considered against the law. And in the future, these kinds of actions, as they greatly increase, we shall greatly increase in numbers. And in numbers, we shall eventually become stronger. And when we get those numbers, that will be a time to know that your end is over. We, the people, do not want to tolerate this government in this tyrannical control, and we will not tolerate it any longer. You have been warned by just one individual of the whole of Australia. Trust me, there's many that feel the same way. And the more that you push the buttons of each individual out here, the more that we boil up and we see inside the true demons that our government represents and the true threat to fate of our freedom that the government represents. And through this, through the constitutional laws left of Australia, we have all rights to remove those that are set against us, the population, and our liberties and our ways of life to harm us in any way, that we will remove it and we will replace it with a government of liberty and freedom and a transparent control, so the population will never go into this turmoil of this crisis manufactured by organisations in order to profit again. Thank you, Prime Minister, and thank you everyone else out there for listening. I know that I may have ranted a little bit, but I tried to speak in the best format that I may, and to make everyone else out there understand what is exactly going on. We can live free, or we can die as slaves.